الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Can everybody hear my voice? Is it clear?
Well, we can turn the mic on if you can't hear us in the back.
I'll try to raise my voice maybe, or I don't know, it's up to you, whatever.
You okay?
As long as everybody can hear, that's the most important thing.
Mic would be good then.
Mic?
Gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for ruining your evening with Super Bowl.
We can watch it here.
Unfortunately, we were planning to watch it, but you came. So
Actually, if you feel it's boring, we can always switch.
I think it's on.
Okay. So that's the mic.
no,
What's the mic?
you don't have.
This is your mic.
Oh, okay. All right. Is this better now? Okay, alhamdulillah. All right, so I start, inshallah, with thanking this blessed masjid, mashallah, Masjid Dar es-Salam, for this invitation and for their contribution to the community. They're, mashallah, helping a lot in the activities and the attraction of attracting Muslims to the masjid. Also, I would like to thank you for making it. I'm not someone who people travel to listen to, but I will try with you to explore this important topic. So I am humbled to see Brother Saleh here and a lot of the brothers that I respect. But inshallah, it's a good way to make sure that I'm kept in check. The other thing that I wanted to start with is also to introduce Mishkah University. You've heard Mishkah all back and forth to different places. Mishkah University is an online Islamic sciences university that was established here in Tampa in 2003. And it is mainly online. It teaches multiple different Islamic sciences, and it offers multiple different programs, and a bachelor's degree, master's, and PhD, both in English and in Arabic language. So we're located here in Wesley Chapel, very close, and we would like to make sure that the community here knows about us and that you participate in our work, inshallah. Expedition for success. So part of everybody's natural instinct as human beings, and it's deep in our consciousness, that we always want to succeed. It is something that was implanted in us, that every and each one of us, and everything we do and everything we explore, everything we experience, we would like to always succeed. And whether it's a small thing or a big thing, an ultimate thing, we always want to do the best. And in the context of Islamic teaching, the ultimate success is basically to enter Jannah, to enter paradise. That's why we are here, is working towards that important purpose. فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Whoever success in Islam is really to be able to succeed so that you deserve, and I deserve, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we enter paradise. The purpose of this series of lectures is not necessarily to add to your information, even though informing is part of the objectives. One of the things that we would like to hopefully, present. But mainly it is really revisiting essential concepts that we all have grown up to know and have learned throughout our lives. But because of the fact that we're living in this life, a very busy life, and we always are, on the go, we tend to forget or tend not to go back and look at these concepts closely, and therefore a lot of times, especially our youth, and by the way, I'm always nervous when I see youth. Okay, you make me nervous, not because I respect you so much and I love you so much, but I am afraid that I might not be able to reach out to you perfectly. You are the future of Islam, and I have to be very careful when I talk to you because, you know, I need to make sure it resonates and you get it. And if you have a problem or something you don't understand, please ask me. You know, we tend to forget the value of this great religion, this great faith that we have. You know, how substantial, how good, how beautiful, that, you know, the thing that we have, how precious the thing that we have, which is the way of life and the way for success in this life and hereafter for everybody, all humanity. You know, so it's some kind of a dhikra. It's a reminder. وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Remind, for indeed the reminder benefits the believers. That's one of the purposes. The other one is to reaffirm our commitment to this deen, to this religion. Because this deen provides, as we will find out throughout the series, provide the answers to everything in this life as far as the ultimate questions, interrogatives of this life, which we will talk about. The how and the where and the when and the what. All these ultimate questions that people ask, Islam has the answer, the correct answer for each one of them. Not only that, I can make the claim, and it is substantiated claim with evidences, that Islam had never lost a debate and had never lost an argument. And it has an answer to every question and every problem that might come to anybody's mind. So you have to have this. We would like to all reaffirm our trust and our, commitment to this deen, that it provides humanity, the solution for everything, and for a better life. There are main concepts that I would like to emphasize at the beginning, and those concepts, well, the whole series is about really the story, okay, the story of this life. This is a story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had started, and it's going to end. And the best story, or the story was told the best by Islam, by the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who ordered it to start, and He is the one who is going to order it to end, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, going through this journey, we're going to look at this beautiful story of life. And then we need to emphasize certain concepts. Those concepts are not foreign to you, but I just would like to re-emphasize them. First and foremost, there's this fitra, the natural instinct, that people who are not Muslims will call it the human basic capabilities. Things that come with us by definition when we're born. So by definition, when we're born, like when you buy a iPhone, it comes with certain functionality, certain qualities, right? So you know that once you follow the manual and make sure that everything is done properly according to the manufacturer, that the phone will achieve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know that there are certain things already in the phone that you bought, given that that phone is not efficient, that would make it so that it would receive the signal finally, and it would actually serve you and help you achieve whatever you want from it. Same thing with the human being. When we are born with this instinct that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in us. And in that instinct, there are certain things that are already given. One of them is this continuous need and ability for learning. There's this urge that we would like to always learn. This is something that is in us. When you are in a room and you find something that is interesting, you don't understand what that is, you would like to explore. you would want to find out exactly what that is. So this learning is something that is part of us. We come to this life with this urge, this impulse, the ability to apprehend certain concepts to be true, the fact that there should be a creator, there has to be a creator, and that there's certain things that are always, true, like for example, fairness and justice and freedom and being good to others, charity. You don't have to be a Muslim to understand the value of all these values. Anybody, any human being would actually, with his or her natural instinct, would actually identify with all these concepts. On the other hand, also with this instinct and this natural instinct, you'll be able to identify the things that should be rejected. So filth is filthy. Adultery is wrong. Theft is not right. It's not acceptable. Lying is wrong. You don't have to be a Muslim. This is something that comes with you as part of you as a human being. And then your ability to comprehend the truth once presented to you. So we are equipped when we were created to be able to receive the truth if it was given to us, if it was provided for us with certain conditions we will talk about in a little bit. So that ability, it's like a receiver, like the phone. If it was started properly and you followed the manufacturer instruction, then it would actually start receiving the signal properly. The particular signal that was meant for it, that was meant for the technology in there. My background is in computers, so I'm going to bring a lot of computers examples. It's not going to be about fruits or vegetables, it's going to be about computers. So same thing with updating a computer, for example. You have a patch that you need to put. There has to be some programs in there that are ready to receive that update and interact with it in order for it to work. That natural instinct, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about it in the Quran in many ayat. فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. This natural instinct that Allah had created in every person and every human being. The fact that we are all wanting to worship Allah and know that Allah is one and should be worshipped is given to us in the ayah. Allah told us that we have given that promise to Him when we were created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَىٰ شَهِدْنَا أَن تَقُولُوا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ. And mention when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their loins, their descendants, and made them testify of themselves, saying to them, am I not your Lord? They said, yes, we have testified. This, lest you should say on the day of resurrection, indeed, we were of this and aware. So that belief, that truth, that fact is implanted in us, and we have given that oath to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we were created. The Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith further explained. He said, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Messenger of Allah, peace be, blessing be upon him, said, every newborn is born upon the natural instinct, and his parents turn him into a Jew, a Christian, a Magian, as an animal produces their young with perfect limbs. Do you see anything defective? So normal thing is that there's no deficiency in the animal that is created or born. Therefore, by the way, this is between two parentheses. The idea of not believing in God or doubting that there is a creator for this universe is something that contradicts with our natural instinct, with our very nature of our existence, our creation. So much so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not address it in the Quran. There's only one ayah in the Quran that talks about it. أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or were they created by nothing? Allah is asking, wondering, really? Like seriously? Is that what they're talking about? Is that what they're believing? They were created from nothing or by nothing? Or were they the creators themselves? You know, it's unacceptable. Something that the human being would reject right away. There has to be a creator to this universe. So the thing that is given, the thing that is part of, you know, our instinct, there was not a lot of discussion about it. Therefore, this big problem that you see right now, where people are rejecting God, and if you go to college, you see, you know, this movement where people are trying to argue in front of you and try to doubt the existence of God. And they will give you all kind of arguments and counter-arguments and to try to make you believe that the whole thing happened by chance, is against the fitra, is against the basics of, you know, the truth of this universe. So it is really inconceivable and unacceptable. The other concept, or the other thing that I would like to also emphasize, are the interactors. You know, we use these all the time in our world, in our life. You know, where, when, you ask questions, right? How, why. But the ultimate questions that you use these interactives for are these questions. Where from? You know, this, by the way, happens to you when you see death, or when you see imperfection, or when you are under pressure. Death is a very, very serious matter, serious thing in our lives, because we lose our loved one, the one that we had all our lives, the one that we are attached to, and all of a sudden we're putting that person to the ground. The person who is not a Muslim or has a very thin faith, he would ask these questions. You know, this would trigger basically asking these questions. Where from? Where did I come from? When did I begin? How was I started? Who started me? You know, people who were introduced to Islam, who don't know anything about Islam, somewhere in an island, you know, they would have these questions. They would ask themselves these questions. They would want to explore the answers for these questions. It's part, this is an urge, there's an impulse in them. Why was I started? What is the purpose of my existence? What is explicitly required of me? Why am I here and what should I do? What is it that I'm asked to do? How do I fulfill my purpose? Where do I go after death? There's death. Is that the end of it? You know, people, when they talk about evolution, and they talk about that everything happened by chance, they cannot answer the single question: what happens after death? Everybody dies. It was just a nonsense story, just like that. People came to life in a coincidence, and they're gonna just leave, and it's up to you to try to struggle to just capture as much of this dunya as possible, and then you go and nothing happens. Those questions are very, very crucial and very important, and they are part of us. We basically, this concept in computers, where if you have two machines that would like to communicate to each other, one of them would ping the other, asking, you know, for a response. So the same thing. These questions are there in us. They're always being asked, unless and until they are fulfilled with the correct answers provided by the right source, they will still be asked. Guess what? Islam is the only answer, the only place, the only source that answers all these questions satisfactorily is Islam. And the reason being is because this is from the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now everything I talk about here is substantiated. There are evidences for it. It is authenticated. In other words, I'm not just claiming things. We're not claiming things here. Okay, so I know, alhamdulillah, you're all Muslims and you have the faith, but whoever has a doubt about, you know, an argument I'm making, if someone says, why Islam? You know, why the Creator has to be the source? We have answers for all those questions. But we know, we believe, and we have seen, and we have lived the fact that Islam is the source for answering these questions properly. And by answering these questions properly, the correct answers, as we will see, in the proper way, in the right, meeting all the conditions, the human being will reach the state of enlightenment. And that state is really an interactive state. It is not just enlightenment of the brain, but also the heart and the soul. It is an interactive process which will lead to Iman, to faith. See, there's no blind faith in Islam. The faith happens, evolves, once that message clicks with the fitra, with the natural instinct. And then once that happens, then the Iman starts evolving and starts increasing. And with your work and with your obedience to Allah and connection with Allah, you would become a better Muslim and your faith will increase. And, so someone might ask, so how we understand this with the ayah, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ? Yes, we believe in the unseen, given that this unseen was explained to us or told to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The brain's job is to authenticate the information, al-khabar. It has to be authenticated. That's the role of the brain, mainly. Because otherwise, anybody would come and make a claim. And there are many claims that are happening and that you see and you hear about every day, about how to live and how to be happy. And you see all these infomercial, on TV and other places. They're talking about, motivational speakers who are trying to motivate you and tell you that they have found the formula for happiness. By the way, we have the formula for happiness. And I will explain. So, Islam is the enlightenment because it provides the satisfying answers for these questions. But the main thing about these questions and their answers is that in order for them to be satisfying and fulfilling, they need to be from the Creator. They have to be from the Creator. Like the iPhone, that the patch has to come from Apple. It cannot come from Android. The Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala, has to talk to you, talk to the fitra, the means of the Creator, the means of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the prophets and the messengers, the revelation, the books. It has to be authentic. It has to be relevant to the questions and to the life that you're living. Because by the way, you will find out, and we found out, inshallah, as Muslims, that these answers are not only provided once for the ultimate questions, they are provided continuously in our lives because Islam is a way of life. Because Islam is an ingredient or a recipe for worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be happy in this life and successful in the hereafter. So it's a continuous revelation, or revelation stopped, but a continuous guidance to us in our lives. Precision, clarity, inclusiveness. Because the talk, when you listen to lectures sometimes, it is really talking to your brain. It's trying to educate you. It's trying to increase your information. But the address or the message of Islam in the Quran and also in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is talking to your totality, to everything in you, to your soul, to your heart, to your brain, to everything. And it takes into consideration your situation and everything that you will need. So it will provide you with an answer that is correct and applicable for you and for everybody who is in the same situation like you, while making sure that everything else is not violated or is disturbed. And Islam is the only religion that will provide, and I'm talking about certain cases that are established. I'm not talking about the specific contemporary issues. Those are open for, ijtihad. But if Islam says this is the fair, like for example, let's talk about the inheritance. The way Islam had specified the specific ruling of inheritance is by definition the just way of distributing inheritance. We can say this not only because we're believers, but because it is the truth. In places like Tunis and other places are trying now to make it so that it is 50-50 between the women and men. Who is going to be taking less of the inheritance? The woman. Because if you actually make a rule that they always get 50-50, it's an advantage for us. We will end up making more, having more wealth inherited than them. The way it is precisely divided and prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes sure that it is just and fair in every situation for all people, in every time, under every sky, all circumstances covered. And it is fair. All things considered, all things are taken care of in the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so we talked about that, and then Iman. So Iman is also, once we reach the level of Iman and faith, it's the result of enlightenment that, as we mentioned, it is really spiritual and practical. It is whatever is believed in the heart, it is affirmed with the tongue and confirmed with the deeds. The word Iman in Arabic, as it was spoken at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and defined at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or used, was the believing, التصديق. Al-Iman wa tasdeeq. Believing something. When you say to someone that you believe them, you tell him, Amantu bi kalamika. I believed what you just said. It is really a heart, operation. It is a heart process, something in the heart. Islam had taken that word and made it a term that was given its own definition according to Islam. The definition of Iman according to Islam is the belief that is that resonate in the heart and is affirmed with the tongue by La ilaha illallah, by believing in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, announcing and uttering this, and by doing the deeds. قول إيمان بالقلب, قول باللسان, وعمل بالأركان. This is what Iman. Same thing with Salah, by the way. Salah originally means dua, supplication. But Islam had given it its own definition. Salah is when we say Salah, or we ask you, Hasallayta, have you prayed? What comes to mind right away? I'm talking about the prayer, right? The rak'at, the sujood, the ruku'. I'm not talking about supplication. Why? Because Islam had given that, definition to the word. And the confirmation with the deeds is something that is not usually understood by people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mentioned many ayat. For example, he talked to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said to tell us, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, Muhammad, if you should love Allah, us, should love Allah, then follow me. So Allah will love you and forgive you your sins, and Allah is forgiving and merciful. So it is not enough to just say, I love Allah, I believe in Allah, I am a Muslim. You have to do the work. You have to practice. You have to abide by the orders of Allah. Again, these are very old concepts. I'm just reminding myself and all of you to get into the topic. But if we do not revisit these concepts every now and then, we tend to forget the value of the thing that we have. And slowly people tend to forget, how beautiful and important what we have is, and they might get attracted to other ideas and other, concepts which are not Islamic. The process of Iman requires the well-being of the brain and the well-being of the heart. And I'm not talking about that from the physical perspective. I'm talking about it from the spiritual side of it, the mental side of it. So spiritually, your brain needs to be intact, available to receive the truth. And the same thing with the heart. The Prophet ﷺ said that there is a piece of meat, piece of flesh in every person. If it was good, everything else will be good, and if it went bad, everything will be bad. And he said it is the heart, it is the receiver The brain and the heart are the receivers of the truth. If there was a problem with the brain when it comes to Islam and the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there is a problem in the receiver, not in the message. And this is called, or maybe the presentation of the message, those who are conveying the message to you. The message itself is complete and perfect. The problem is maybe in the people who are presenting it to you. The brain, though, might suffer from an illness called the illness of shubha, marad shubha, or confusion. He'd have multiple concepts and he's not able to make a determination which is which. And the cure for that is knowledge. The cure for that is knowledge. And the key for knowledge is asking the question, as the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned in the hadith. But the heart also has its own illness. And that illness is the illness of shahwa. So there's marad al-shubha and there's marad al-shahwa. The shahwa, the heart, is tempted and wants to gain and attain more and more of the desires of this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Allah says that every human being was created to love, accumulating more and more of the horses and the wealth and the women and all the desires of life. And this is all mata'ul hayat dunya. This is the enjoyment of this unworthy life or unworthy time on this earth. So if the heart is consumed with the desires and with following and trying to accumulate and attain the temptations of this life, it will not be able to receive the haqq or the truth. So this is a problem. The iman goes up and down accordingly. And as we believe in Islam that iman is not a constant thing, it's not the faith is not something that is constant. يزيد بالطاعات وينقص بالمعاصي. It increases with good deeds and it decreases with bad deeds. So you have to be always on the struggle to increase your iman. We can say, as I mentioned earlier, reaching the level of enlightenment, which is a place of iman, and then struggling in the ladder of iman to get to the higher place possible, or the highest place possible, is the recipe for happiness in Islam. This is what we have to offer all mankind. That the solution for people who are miserable, who are depressed, and my students who ever heard any of my lectures would know that I repeat this a lot. I know psychiatrists don't agree with me, they hate me, but I say if everything's equal and if Islam is applied properly and if there's no physical deficiency in the person, there should be no reason for depression or mental illnesses. I mean, at least in theory. Because Islam provides you with the means and the ways for happiness. Iman elevates you and makes you at a level where you know that all these things are lesser than Allah. Allah is bigger and higher and greater than all this. That's why when you stand in the salah and you say Allahu Akbar, you have to have the feeling that, and you mean it, that Allah is greater than my problems, my issues, my debt, my this, my that. Everything is lesser than Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can just help you and get all this, resolved for you. So iman is really, that's why salah, the Prophet ﷺ used to say to Bilal, Arihna biha, ya Bilal, oh Bilal, give us comfort with it. Give us comfort with it. So this is important. We have the recipe for happiness. People have billions and billions of dollars. And yes, maybe money can facilitate things and will make things easier, but they will never buy happiness. It's true. People who have billions of dollars and have killed themselves or committed suicide, and this is known. Everybody knows about it. What's the reason for this? Is there anybody who done a research on this? Are there research on have people asked themselves? Scientists ask themselves, why would someone who is at the top of his game, making all this money, living what seems to be a very comfortable life, kill himself or herself. Why? Why would they do that? Well, because because these impulses in them that keep asking these questions, hurting them so much. They're depressed because they're not getting the answers. They're not being answered properly. They don't have faith. They don't have iman. So this is what we have. Remember, when a philosopher or when somebody at the school tell you or introduce a doubt about the existence of Allah, remember what you have. Remember the goal, the precision, the beautiful thing that you have, the valuable thing that you have, which is Islam. We have the recipe for success and the recipe for happiness. It decides to die on me. Maybe it's a sign from Allah. I don't want to mention names, but somebody wrote on the Facebook, a friend of brother of he exists here and he's in this lecture today. He said that people, when they're bored, they tend to play with their iPhones nowadays. So I'm looking at people who play with their iPhones just to find out whether I'm boring or not. But I'll raise my voice. We're almost done. So these are concepts, okay, that I'm introducing that we would like to remind each other about. Very important concepts. I would like the youth in particular to have understood what I just said. If not, please come to me. We will talk for a long, long time about them. I know I'm an old man and I cannot, understand you very well, but I am very open-minded. I have the youth heart, the heart of a young person. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Beautiful. Alhamdulillah. So I can just finish my last part here. So we start with the beginning of life. Beginning of life. First thing that astonishes us when we study the beginning of life is that the first thing that was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the pen. Was not the universe, was not the human, was not anything you see around you, is the pen of all things. Of all things. If I ask you, if you didn't know that, if I ask you, what do you think Allah would have or had actually created first and foremost? People might think about other things, might think, oh, maybe the air, maybe the heaven, the sky. The pen of all things. Amazing. And then he ordered it to start writing. Ubadah ibn Samit radiallahu anhu narrated that Prophet ﷺ said, the first that Allah had created was the pen. And then he ordered him to write. The pen asked, Oh Allah, oh my Lord, what shall I write? Allah said, write the destiny of everything until the time of the hereafter. This is a very authentic hadith. Now, you would ask yourself, where was the pen writing, right? That's the second thing that is amazing when you explore. I'm sorry, where am I here? Okay. No, I'm ahead of myself. Here we should be, in this slide. The second thing that we find out when we look at and explore and study the beginning of life is that Allah created a Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved slate, the preserved board. And he ordered the pen, who he created before, to start writing everything about this life. Any information that comes to mind, anything that existed, exists, would exist, and if it didn't exist, had it existed, how it would be. Everything, all information. I'll give you an example. It was mentioned in the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that, and my students had heard this from me maybe before. The Prophet ﷺ said that لا يرد القضاء إلا الدعاء. Nothing faces and stops the qada, the destiny, except the dua. So how do we understand this? That's why people, like in Syria and other places, when they see a big problem, they say, Allahumma inna la nas'aluka radd al-qada, walakin nas'aluka lutfa fihi. This is wrong dua. because you should ask Allah to face the qada, because the qada, the only way that it can be faced is by dua. So how do you understand this? Allah had mandated something, and it is distant to you. But then something else happened. You make dua, something else happened. Like for example, you pray Fajr, you make dua, you're traveling in the car, and you say, oh Allah, save me, save my family, you make dua. And then you leave, and then you face a very, dangerous situation where you almost got into an accident, you almost got killed. And Allah saved you. So we say the dua, inshallah, had protected you with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the purposes, or one of the things that the Lawh al-Mahfuz, as it was explained by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that, and I will make it easy to understand, it would be written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz that this person is going to pray Fajr and he's going to go and travel in the car. And that piece of information is given to the angels. By the way, you have mu'aqibat. You have angels that come to you in the Fajr and they leave, and then shifts. You're always being watched, under surveillance. All of us are always under surveillance. And نعبد الله كأننا نراه. That's the ihsan. فإن لم نكن نراه فإنه يرانا. So those angels, they come down with the aqdar, with the things that are going to happen in that particular shift. But in these books, not the full story will be there. It will only be the story that says, this person is going to pray Fajr, is going to make dua, and then, pray Fajr, and then ride his car, and then go, and he will be in an accident. But then the angel, as mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the angel would see that a different course had taken. This person was saved. He got into an accident, but he didn't die. On his book, it says he would die. Well, in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the full story is mentioned, is written, that he will be praying Fajr, but then he will be making dua, and because of that dua, even though he will be in an accident, Allah will save him. So that Lawh al-Mahfuz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, أَلَمْ تَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ فِي كِتَابٍ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ كتاب هذا قال أهل العلم هو اللوح المحفوظ. Do you know, or do you not know, that Allah knows what is in the heaven and earth? Indeed, that is in a record. That is the preserved board. Indeed, that for Allah is easy. بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. But this is an honored Quran in a preserved slate. So Quran itself is also in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. It was narrated also that when it was brought down to earth, or to the Sama al-Dunya, it was brought from the Lawh al-Mahfuz. That is the nuzul of the Quran. But the third thing that strikes you when you look at the beginning of life is the concept of the essentiality of knowledge. Knowledge is amazingly emphasized from the beginning. From the beginning. Throughout the teachings of Islam, of course, but from the beginning. The pen is number one. Number two, even the way we were created. Have you ever thought about the way we construct our fingers, for example? The thumb and the index? How they're created in a certain way where we're able to hold the pen and write with the pen. Chimps can't do that. Those people who think that they're, the ancestors of chimps, that's their problem. But no animal, no creature was created this way. We were in particular, because we are responsible to carry on the message of Allah and to build the civilizations and build the life and advance in it on this earth. We were equipped to do and fulfill the responsibility. We came ready. We have what it takes. And even the way we're constructed, the way we're created, we're ready. We come with fingers that are ready to hold the pen and write with it. The first verse that was revealed This is something that you have heard so many times and we know and I'm repeating, but just think about it for a second. Reading and the pen were mentioned in the ayat in Surah Al-Qalam, chapter 96, verse 1 to 5. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. قراءة. Read. Okay, that's a tool for knowledge, right? خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Recite in the name of your Lord, who created man from clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. And by the way, the Prophet ﷺ said in one hadith, قَيِّدُوا الْعِلْمَ بِالْكِتَابِ. Use the pen, write to affirm and confirm the information. By the way, we're losing this important part of the term keyboarding. Affirm it with keyboarding. But I have somebody told me earlier a week ago. He said for more than 10 years now he hadn't written a full article or a full page with a pen. Of course, he would use the pen for writing a note or something, but mostly with the keyboard. But there is this relationship between the pen and the establishment of civilizations. I know it's a cliche that we use all the time, that we were the best, we have introduced, which is true. It's not something that we should not stop saying over and over and over, but we should act on it. We should be like them. We should take what it takes for us to get there. But it's true, it's a matter of fact. I was in Tunis earlier last week. I went to visited the first university established on earth. There was no concept of universities, at that time. The president of the university told me, he said, do you know the first thing Uqba ibn Nafi' did when he came to Tunis after building the masjid? He established the katatib. Right away, knowledge. Right away. These people were like from different ethnicities. He brought them right away, and in the next visit, Abdullah ibn Umar reached to that place. You know how long it takes you to come from Medina all the way to Tunis? It's a long way. It was a long way in the plane. So you wonder what it takes on a camel. And you get there, and subhanAllah, you see the history of Islam over there, the Sahaba, what they did. So the point is knowledge. It's amazing. Emphasized so much in Islam. Amazing. From the beginning. That's something that happened later. From the beginning. And then when Allah created Adam, first thing he did is what? عَلَّمْ وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. First thing he did is he taught him the names of everything that matters in this life that would help him understand the concept of life on earth. Adam understood the concept of life. It was a life, right? He was talking, he was walking, and he went to Jannah for a while. And we'll talk about Adam, the story of Adam, in the next lectures, inshallah. But how to live on earth? What are the main things that Adam need to be aware of in order for him to be able to exist and advance? It was taught to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, we're going to jump the gun a little bit here and go to, a little bit later in the story of life, to the Quranic evidences and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You'll be amazed the amount of verses and ayat that talk about knowledge. And by the way, people think that the knowledge that is addressed in Quran is only the Islamic sciences or the knowledge about Islam. That's not true, by the way. That's important, very important. The most important thing to know is the thing that has to do with Allah, because Allah is the greatest. Of course, the Islamic sciences are very high up there in the levels of knowledge, but all kind of knowledge. Al-ulama, Allah says, scholars. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Those who most are fearful of Allah are His servants who are scholars. All scholars. The physician, the engineer, all the scholars in Islam are valued, and scholarship is very much valued. أَمَّنْ هُوَ قَانِتٌ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ سَاجِدًا وَقَائِمًا يَحْذَرُ الْآخِرَةَ وَيَرْجُو رَحْمَةَ رَبِّهِ قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ إِنَّمَا يَتَذَكَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ is one who is devoutly obedient during periods of the night, prostrating and standing in prayer, fearing the hereafter and hoping for the mercy of his Lord, like one who does not say, are those who know equal to those who do not know. And look at this presentation of this beautiful concept in Islam, in this ayah. That's why I say when Allah talks, He doesn't only talk to your brain. He talks to your totality. Allah is explaining this important concept by talking about its implication and its application. Which is what? That you're praying for Him at night. And so scholars by default, by definition, if you're a scholar, scholars should be closer to Allah, should be abiding by the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Scholars. I always say this also to my brothers and sisters. I'm always puzzled by a physician who is an atheist. That I cannot understand. A physician who is an atheist, I cannot understand that. Who actually was able to see the actual, the human beings' parts and all the cells and all the concepts and rules and laws, and then still say there's no God. That is amazing and acceptable. And of course, in the hadith, there are too many hadith talk about ilm. So it's amazing how many, the amount of evidences in the Quran and the Sunnah that emphasize knowledge, talk about knowledge, praise the scholars, is amazing. You can write a PhD dissertation about this. It's amazing. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, whoever take a path intending to gain knowledge, Allah will facilitate for him a path to paradise. And the angels bestow their wings for the seeker of knowledge, approving his struggle. And all the creatures in the heavens and earth, even the whales in the water, ask for forgiveness for the scholar. In one hadith, even the ants under the rocks, they make dua and istighfar for the scholar, because the scholar is teaching people al-khayr, yu'allimu an-nas al-khayr, teaching people what is good and that is intended. And the virtue of the scholar over the worshipper is like the virtue of the moon over the rest of the planets. In one narration, is as the virtue of me over the least among you. That's the gap. That's the difference between a person who has knowledge and that person who does not have the knowledge. And scholars are the inheritors of the prophets, and the prophets did not leave behind dinar or dirham, meaning wealth. Instead they left behind knowledge. So whoever takes it has taken a great benefit. Okay, alhamdulillah, we reached the end safely. So I'm sorry if I was late. Actually, I did not want to take a whole hour. I'm sorry that it took me a whole hour. Any questions?
I just use a lot that you are like robot, because everything is written in learning code, right?
Mm.
So whatever acts you are doing, good or bad, that's your destiny, right? So what is the answer of this? There's several answers, but this is the common thing they ask.
Well, the short answer is this.
Repeat the question.
Well, the question is, if everything is written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved word, By the way, this question was asked to the Prophet ﷺ by the Sahaba. فَفِيمَ الْعَمَلِ He asked, "O Prophet Allah, so why should we work if everything is determined?" Well, what the Prophet ﷺ said, everybody is going to do what it was meant for him to do. وَيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ. But that, the Sahabi understood what the Prophet ﷺ meant. But nowadays, because of our lack of understanding, maybe Arabic or Islam, we might not still understand. The basic question is this: if anybody is able, if any human being is able to answer any facts of the unseen and be able to explain them, and not just believing in them without having an answer for them in their existence, you will be able to answer this question. What we are supposed to do is just what we were meant to do and we were created to do, which is basically use the ability to make choices, to make the right choice based on the guidance that are given to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What Allah knows is beyond us. What Allah know about the end of every one of us is something that beyond our comprehension or even our responsibility. Like the teacher, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, like a teacher who has a lot of students and he knows the good students and the bad students and the weak students and the advanced students, and he would give the test for everybody. He had given them an equal opportunity, an equal chance. And he knows probably 99% this student is going to fail. And the other person is going to succeed. And then the result, were exactly what he expected. In the case of Allah, it's not expectation, it's knowledge. So who is to blame at the end of the day? That's why what needs to be looked at more than this philosophical question is what it is that's going to happen to me at the end, really. I mean, am I going to be among those who Allah will have His mercy on, or am I going to just want to prove a point of some kind? Try to explore something that is beyond me, I will never be able to understand or comprehend. So that's why we are in the circle of choice with the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is inside the wider circle of knowledge of Allah, which is beyond and above our comprehension. So we're weak, we do what we have in hands in front of us, and we act accordingly. Prophet ﷺ used to get so angry when the question of qadar, when the question of predestiny is raised, because it's something that is not meant for us. Like if we want to talk and explore the matters of soul, ruh, or spirit, this is something beyond us. Allah even said in the Quran that this is not a matter of yours. It's something that is none of your business, basically. It is not your affair. It's not your responsibility to explore the concept of ruh. And small comment here, what's amazing is that all the advancement in science throughout history in Islam, you will see that it was always guided with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will not find, I challenge you, challenge myself and everybody, not one single research paper that was written or explored since the time of the Prophet ﷺ until now by Muslims about ruh. Not one. Where there are grants now given by the government to institutions that lobby at the government to explore the actuality of spirits. Look at the money that is being paid and consumed. Same thing with eternity. There's no single, research about whether, how can we break the cycle and live eternally. There's no one research that was made by Muslims about this topic. Why? Because our research is guided with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another question? We're done, right?
One question? Thank you, brother. With regard to the pen, you made reference to the pen and the importance of it. If it was invented during the Prophet's time, I guess I'm hoping you can clarify for me is the hadith that that we try to follow or discuss and learn is all unwritten or reported by other people. It's not authenticated by the Prophet and his hand and his signature himself. So I was wondering why or how you can explain that, please.
Right. So, to understand this, we have to go back and understand life at the time of the Prophet ﷺ as it was, the reality of that life at that time. The Arabs were masters in memorization. They were mostly illiterate. They would not write. The people who write among them or able to write are very few. They're the minority. The majority are just, they have this a great ability to memorize. So, and their memorization is very, very, very detailed and very accurate. So the reliance was heavily, even in the Quran, on the memorization. So even the Sahaba radhiyallahu alayhim would say that we would learn the 5 ayat or 10 ayat that were revealed. We would memorize them, we would understand them, we would apply them, then we would go to the next 10. And they all were memorizers of the Quran. So it was preserved in the hearts. Same thing with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They were initially memorized by the Sahaba. Initially the Prophet ﷺ prohibited them from writing them, scribing them, because he didn't want them to be mixed up with the Quran, which was at that time written, and they were writers of the Quran. And so it was always conveyed orally.
Thank you. That answered my question.
That's the thing. But the main thing you need to understand, though, is that they were so precise and careful when they convey the words of the Prophet ﷺ. So at the time of Ridda, when people left Islam, at the time of Abu Bakr, there was a hadith that they all heard from the Prophet ﷺ. It's not written, but they all heard it. But none of them, including Abu Bakr, had remembered the exact wording of it. So part of the delay in the decision on whether to fight those people who committed apostasy or not is to find the actual wording. Did anybody hear it? Anybody remembers it the way the Prophet ﷺ says it? Until Abdullah ibn Umar came and he said, yes, this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, and he stated the exact wording. So it was preserved.
But you said the Prophet ﷺ did not allow them to write things down.
He did not initially allow them to write, but then later he told Abu Hurairah, go ahead and write. He said, by Allah, this tongue does not say but what is a revelation, what is truth, what is a truth. This is another hadith. Huh?
This is hadith. Does not allow them to write hadith only.
And no, initially he did not allow them to write the hadith.
Right.
But later on, when the Quran was established in the hearts and memorized and the process was in place, then he allowed them to start writing the hadith, even at his time. But the story of hadith is a long story. What happened after that and how it was, compiled and all. This is another topic. We will talk about it or touch on it in later lectures. You're most welcome. All right.
We have time.
We have time. Okay.
2 more questions.
Brother in the back.
You mentioned
Sisters.
that,
I'll go to the sisters. I'm sorry, forgot that sisters are there. Can I take one of the sisters? Okay, sisters. Anybody? No, I guess no. They understood everything. But for you,
Yeah, you mentioned that knowledge is so comprehensive that has been delivered from the brain and the heart and the ruh. And the difficulty with the brain is shubhat, and the heart would be shahwat. What would be for the
how to
what would be the entire
the hint,
the challenge.
challenge
the challenges
for the spirit?
For the ruh. For the ruh.
for the speech.
For the ruh.
انت ذكرت القلب في الشهوات
صح.
والعقل الشبهات.
Right.
فما هي التحدي للروح؟
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So, thank you. I'm sorry.
First question.
So the spirit. Well, the word spirit and heart and brain, they're interchangeable, really. Because there's no such thing as, yes, we know there is a spirit, but it's also referred to as the heart. And the heart is really the king of the whole body, the whole existence of the human being. So when we say Allah talks to the soul, talks to the spirit, He's talking to the heart and to the brain. So it is really a comprehensive speech, comprehensive message. Even when the Prophet ﷺ was asked by a Bedouin, he asked him, what do you call for? He did not tell him, well, I call for Allah, and then He's one, and then I am his messenger, and they were prophets. He did not go and explain it academically. He said, I call for the one who, if you were alone in the desert, and you lost your animal, and you had no water, and you only found yourself that you're going to die, and you go back to and say, oh God, I need you, I need your help. That's the one I'm calling for. So he did not here convey the message to the brain. He conveyed it to the whole being of that person, the heart, spirit, soul, and brain. So it's not really very. But when we talk about the illnesses that the brain and the heart are exposed to, we discuss it academically. Basically, we say, okay, usually the brain have problems with understanding the truth. Maybe because it is not true, or maybe because it's mispresented, or maybe because there is a problem that are in the brain itself that is not able to receive the truth. Same thing with the heart. You know, there's this ran, بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. When people do a lot of bad deeds, then there is this cover that covers the heart that prevents the heart from receiving or interacting with the truth. So probably this is the answer to my question about a doctor who is an atheist. Maybe this ran that is covering his heart or her heart that is preventing them from seeing the truth. Tfadl.
If you allow me to add,
Absolutely.
usually it's a struggle between the intellect and the emotions. I think that's why they say there's the IQ and the EQ.
Right.
And that's why a person like Abu Jahl or Walid al-Mughira intellectually accepted the fact that Islam is al-haq and that Rasulullah Muhammad is the messenger, is the messenger, but his emotions, his arrogance is prevented him. So there are two things here. Like you said, the guy who's a surgeon or a doctor who refuses, in fact, he may be intellectually believing in God, but his lust and desires say, let me, deny that so I can make the rules rather than follow the rules.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair for the explanation. And what you just mentioned is also mentioned in the Quran. فَإِنَّهُمْ لَا يُكَذِّبُونَكَ وَلَكِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ يَجْحَدُونَ. So Allah is saying to the Prophet ﷺ that they really do not believe that you're a liar. They know that what you're saying is the truth. But it's a juhud, ijhad, that they just reject, which is the emotional part of it. Jazakallah khair. You're beautiful.
Yeah, the context is the Islamic education, right? You mentioned about the importance of knowledge. So we have different groups within our community, like looking for the secular knowledge or looking for the Islamic knowledge. What should be the ideal balance between both to really make a real Muslim, which we would like to have?
Well, I hope with my lectures I'm going to be answering some of these questions. This question is going to be addressed. Once we understand why we exist in the first place, then we understand what needs to be in what perspective. So if we know that we exist on earth to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that is the main objective of our life. And everything that we do is for that purpose. That's why in Islam we have this very wide definition of ibadah. Ibadah encapsulates everything that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is made for His sake. Intention was for His sake. So if you go and learn, it is for the sake of Allah. If you go eat, for the sake of Allah. To help worship Allah, to help fulfill your mission on earth. So the idea of understanding why we're here and where we're going puts things in perspective. So when I go and learn the quote-unquote secular science, I am not contradicting with the mission of my existence. I'm actually, that's why there was no problem between science and theology in Islam, unlike the Christians in the Middle Ages. There's no, how could it be? How could it have been a problem between science and Islam if Islam from the beginning of the creation emphasized knowledge? So there's no contradiction whatsoever. And Allah ordered in the Quran for us to go and explore, and He emphasized the importance of scholarship. So there should be no, if there is a problem, then there is something that is not understood properly, or there is a problem in the iman, in the
We
faith.
have a big problem in our community.
So we're trying and attempting to help even a little bit in resolving this problem, inshallah. All right.
Can I, a quick comment on this? I mean, there is the extreme, I mean, I heard it before, that if there is a situation that requires Muslims to gain knowledge to solve a problem, I'm talking secular science, then it is obligatory that somebody has to go and find that knowledge to solve that problem.
Yes. When it comes to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then sometimes certain sciences are an obligation. But by default, any kind of attainment of knowledge in Islam is an act of worship, because it's something that pleases Allah, something that is in the fabric of the deen. It's like who we are. It's about knowledge, enlightenment. So, but certain fields, like Brother said, become sometimes more important and have higher priority than others. Because if Muslims don't do them, don't have the specialty in them, then the whole community or the whole nation of Muslims will be accountable, or maybe committing a sin. Fard kifaya, as we mentioned. We still have, we open the door, so sure, go ahead.
Sister in the back.
Can I take the sister second time? Yes, sister.
I'm sorry, but I'm not that good in English, and I have built up my idea.
You can ask in Arabic and I'll translate it to English, your question.
أسأل عن القلم.
عن ماذا؟ قلم.
Allah he created the qalam first, but if we see Allah create the qalam first, he created Adam the last. So the qalam, it wasn't created from the unity. So there is a malaika in the middle, and there are nothing yet to do. So we will not think about qalam, that the word that we're writing, we did today.
Correct. That's a very good question. Yes, I hope I did not make you understand that I'm talking about the qalam. We don't even carry qalam anymore. We don't carry pen. we only carry this, right? Of course, I do not mean that pen. Okay. The concept of the pen, we don't know how it is. So that is definitely right. And then also I have not talked about the sequencing in the creation. In other words, I have not put the ladder of the creation, that okay, the pen, but I emphasized something that struck me when I researched the beginning of life, is that the pen and the board. You know, it's amazing. It's all about, and then the emphasis on knowledge, and Adam when was created. So that is the concept. Yes. Totally.
Yeah, our Prophet ﷺ said that acquisition of knowledge is obligatory on every male and female.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, extending his question, that acquisition of knowledge, which is obligatory,
Mm-hmm.
what is that? How far we go?
Right.
What's
So
the scope of it?
the knowledge. What is this knowledge that Allah ordered us, or the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to learn? First and foremost, I emphasized at the beginning that this urge and impulse for learning is something that is in us, no matter what. But then Allah told us that you have to do it. And your life is all about learning. You always learn things. You're 50, you're 60, you're still learning things. By the way, I'm still learning new words, even at this age. Things that my maybe son and my children will be saying like us. Oh, really, Baba, you didn't know this? Yeah, I didn't know this for the past whatever number of years. So it's learning. The process of learning never ends. But the first and the most important thing to know for a person are the things that are related directly to his mission and purpose on this earth. So you should know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the oneness of Allah and the things that will make you glorify Allah and properly worship Allah, properly obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things are obligations on you. You have to have an idea, understand how you perform them, how you know them. So, and then you go on and on with it. And the things that would actually increase your iman. So you have to have always a connection with the knowledge of Islam. People think that there's secularism in Islam in the sense that there are people who are tasked to just learn Islam and then they come and tell the rest, okay, do this, don't do that. do this, don't do that. It's not like that. Yes, there are specialized people in the sciences of Islam, and that's what Mishkah is all about, is providing scholars for America and for North America, try to provide the next generation an Azhar, maybe here in the West. But that is not the process. Every Muslim should be learning whatever would always put him on the track of Iman and the path of Iman, increase his faith as he goes in because that's the most important thing in his life. But then after that, the thing that interests him or her, that would actually advance his own life that he is ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish. And then also the thing that would help the mission of Islam on earth, because we should not be looking at our mission or our purpose as individuals only. Islam, by the way, does not agree with individualism, which is the concept this country and the West is almost founded on. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when He talks about the most intimate things of His orders, He talks to us in the sense of the group. إِذَا نَكَحْتُمُ النِّسَاء. All of us. He's talking to one of us, but in the group. We are a group. We are a community. We are a nation of Muslims. Because there's an emphasis on that. That's why it is important to pray Jama'ah. That's why it's important to consult. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Islam, dinun jama'i. It's a religion of the Jama'ah, religion of the groups, of the collective, the collective, coordination and coexistence. So whatever is part of the mission of Islam and Muslims as a nation, something that a person needs to consider when he's attaining knowledge. Because our purpose is to spread this important religion to all mankind. We should not leave anyone behind. Al-A'mash and another, and I think I forgot the name of the other scholar. They both were, one of the scholars was, he had only one eye, and the other one had a very poor sighting. So they were walking together. When they walk together, they help each other. So that the one who has one eye would tell, okay, be careful, there's a storm. The one who has a weaker sightation will be able to see a little bit widely. So the person who is with one eye told the other one, he said, let's go from a different street. We don't want to go from this street because this street has a lot of people who would mock us and make fun of us. So let them not get the ithm, the sin, by doing this to us. Let's go from another or through another way. So he told him, why shouldn't we do that and gain the reward? Let them get the ithm, and we get the reward. نحن مأجورون وهم آثمون. He told him something very wise. He said, why not هم سالمون ونحن سالمون? Why don't we make it so that they are safe and we are safe? That is a better place. So this is our mission as Muslims. It breaks our heart when we see, this depression and problems and disputes and suicide and everything that we see around us. We are the good element in the society, by the way, and we have a mission. So we need to do what it takes to help others and to convey the message of Islam. It's an obligation on us. So it's a priority, and I stop. Subhanakallah. Next week.
Last question. What kind of topic that you will cover next time?
It is the second part of the beginning of life. So we're going to continue until life had begun. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.